What's up? We're in the third part and hopefully the last one now. Please go check out the other parts to gauge your bearings, okay? To figure out what we're talking about over here. Guys, when it comes to marriage, like proper, you need to make sure that you get it right the first time. Because there's literally no second chances unless a person dies. If at all, you're going to be honorable in the sight of God. If at all, you're still going to be safe in the sight of God. Only upon your former spouse perishing can you go and remarry soundly and safely. Your conscience beating you down. You don't want to find yourself having conviction later on in a marriage with basically a man or woman with whom you are committing adultery. Wanting to now separate from that because you feel convicted by the Lord to get out. Because I was speaking about how Gabrielle Union with Dwayne Wade, she likely had what do you call this thing? Like standards that when she was younger, she basically, set apart for herself. She told herself that I would never settle for this. She then went and got married, divorced, then met a guy that was still married, who would ultimately also divorce his woman, and then she settled for him. The two of them were both criminals in this regard. They were like bandits running away with each other, like Bonnie and Clyde. So both of them were guilty, but like I said, according to the standards of this world, by the standards of this world, Gabrielle Union was less guilty because she wasn't all over the show, philandering everybody. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dwayne Wade, I made mention of how it is that he also has effeminate gestures and whatnot, things that he does that make everybody wonder if this guy's not batting for the other team. It is no wonder his son has the same demon. It's what is this? Generationally passed on. The young man that is busy dressing up like a girl that they both of them allegedly embraced. Yeah, that's what's good. It's from the dad. It's a generational curse. So I don't know if Dwayne Wade did not have these issues or had these issues when he was with his wife, but as a black man on the come up, it was likely very taboo, but now it's rearing its ugly head. But like with my ex-boyfriend, who was heavily in the closet, it's possible to see if a guy is busy batting for the other team to cause a woman to flee even before he is content with coming out like Dwayne Wade partially came out. Okay, anyway, never mind the effeminateness. Right now, let's just talk about the nonsense that Gabrielle Union settled with, the cheating, the disregard of her sorrow or her pain with conception, all of these things. Initially, Gabrielle Union was prepared to just take it in her stride because she was in love with a guy and that was it. That's all she was running with. She was in love. She was beside herself with adoration. And because she was so in love with him, just like with me back in the day with that dude that had a kid, even though I didn't want a guy on another one, I was prepared to settle. But these things that you are prepared to settle for, ultimately they start to yawn and they start to scream and they start to beat on drums, and there be loud gongs and an incoherent orchestra playing in the background, irritating you, making it hard for you to sleep at night. And the issues I would imagine that Gabrielle Union likely had with Dwayne Wade from the very get-go, the things that she was disquieted by from the very get-go, they got bigger and bigger. And the thing about being with somebody for a while, I would know, because this was the thing with my ex-boyfriend. In the beginning of our relationship, I was in love with him, and so I took a lot of nonsense in my stride, and I imagined that we're going to ride it out together. I imagined that the two of us were going to be strong and grow with one another. But it got to a point where I was so frustrated with him that I started to insult him. My ex was not a starach. He was slow when it comes to life milestones. I was the one that taught him how to drive. And I could not stand the fact that even though I was prepared to risk my car to teach him how to drive, he could not, at a minimum, book his own learner's license test, and also his own driver's. It took him so long to finally do what he needed to do. And for me, it was like, so far, his first learner's license got expired. And a learner's license in this country expires after 18 months, a year and a half. He allowed 18 months to progress without booking a driving test. And the whole time, I would allow him to drive my car with me in it, another learner's license. And there was a time when he couldn't do that because he let his license, learner's, expire. I was so mad. So because of him doing that, so in the beginning I was like, no, we're going to work on it together. Something that was a deal breaker for me, a no-brainer. I give a guy willing slow sona. Driver. Yeah, no. Well, I was in love and I was like, it's nothing at all. But then there came a time when the very thing I told myself I could take and I will ignore it being an issue, it became a thorn in my flesh until I started to insult him on some, what kind of a man doesn't have a driver's license at this age? You are 4 whole years older than me. You know when you start to belittle a person, essentially it's called emasculation. Yes, thank you. I would emasculate him, even though I started out supportive. So he turned me into a vitriolic girlfriend in certain parts of our relationship because he was just taking his merry time to do what he needs to do. And it was not just a driver's license that was a thing. It was also with career, ambition. I was just growing so quickly. It got to a point where I was vitriolic. I will not lie. So, like I said, the small little thing that you settle for becomes a monster that's eating away at your flesh. It becomes like a gangrene, a necrotizing fasciitis that is threatening you with amputation. And so ultimately you will amputate. In other words, you will eventually break up. You will eventually break up. And so if this is a marriage, it's not a breakup, it's a divorce. Gabrielle Union, the same things that she is likely separated from Dwayne Wade over, were there at the very beginning. But she told herself, this is my man, I'm going to ride it out. This is my man, I'm going to sit it out. But you see, over time, the feelings that you have for a man in a relationship, they don't necessarily dwindle nor flee, but they become, they rest in a homeostasis. They just chill. They stop being like a tumultuous crashing of waves at the ocean. You know what I mean? They stop being a bubbling volcano, and they start being a still, tranquil lake kind of place in a relationship where you can walk into the bathroom with your man, the number 1 or 2, and just walk in and out without anybody feeling embarrassed on, oh, what am I doing? Type thing. The type of chill and tranquil space in a relationship where you no longer are trying to hide the cellulite on your thighs. Because whatever, this guy has seen me. You shouldn't be fornicating, but you get my point. Where you get so comfortable, so relaxed in a relationship, where you don't even think it necessary to wear makeup anymore when you go on dates. You no longer are trying so hard. And it's just homeostatic now. It's relaxed, it's calm. It is an inevitability for an I love you to come at the end of a conversation. Where before it was a treat to be told you are loved at the end of a conversation. Now it's just love you, and it's just whatever, you just throw it. Yeah, it's homeostasis, it's balance, it's equilibrium. And it is when people reach equilibrium that these issues then start to really eat away. They really eat away at you. People don't truly get over their feelings unless a lot of rubbish has happened to cause you to hate a person altogether, right? Like this guy in America made me hate him. But feelings will always come back up again when a person, you have not seen them for years and you see them again. There's like that whole ran into you yesterday. They always bubble again. That's why they don't necessarily dwindle feelings. They just reach homeostasis. But a homeostatic level where you're chill now with each other can be misconstrued for passions dying or for love fading. And when you think your love has faded for somebody, that is when you suddenly see it as a feasibility to just easily divorce or easily break up or threaten divorce and breakups, stuff like that. That's when their issues, whatever it is that were the minor infractions they were committing, now start to become like grand larceny. They now start to become like crimes against humanity. They now start to become like murder, where before it was like petty theft. They become big, guys, at homeostasis. And the passion of Gabrielle Union for Dwayne Wade, the strong feelings for a guy that she imagined she couldn't do without, reached homeostasis. They reached calm. They reached equilibrium. And when she was at equilibrium, all of a sudden then everything else nemo bora. And you see, when you reach equilibrium, a man you love in a marriage that is consecrated by God, and the two of y'all are cool in Christ, you will not have settled, first and foremost. Whatever it is that you took in your stride from the very get-go, you knew that you were prepared to go loose on it. However, deal breakers, you would never have entered into this if they were there. Because God never gave you something that was to a point where you are now with somebody that is wearing deal breakers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner outfits. So you are the kind of couple that talks through stuff. You survive stuff out. You write it out. You talk about infractions that you have issues with. If your man is always leaving the toilet seat open, instead of making war with him about the open toilet seat, you just close it. There are things that you go to war about and things that you just, they're not worth it. You don't make it a worthwhile to pounce on him like an orangutan on his shoulders matter. So you are able to have a peaceful relationship. You're able to have a peaceful union where nobody is arguing. Everybody's talking to each other properly. And even though you can go for 2 months without laying with each other in, relations, it's really not a big deal because, like, we're friends, whatever. Like, it's properly cool. That's your relationship. There's no strife and beef and irritation and therefore insults thrown across the room. But in a relationship where deal breakers were ignored from the very get-go, they then start to get raised as issues during homeostasis, during equilibrium. And when you are in equilibrium and raising something that was already present at the very beginning, that you could have just walked out and broken up with a boyfriend before it became a husband. When you raise these things with this man or this woman, because it can go both ways, he's going to be like, you found me like this. You knew that I had this and that. You knew that I was this and that. You knew. And so why are you trying to change me? You found me like this. Why are you trying to change me? And that's the kind of stuff that then causes a woman to be like, okay, fine, I'm not going to try to change you. I'm filing for divorce. I can't take it. You will keep trying to change them. You will want to panel beat the guy. You will want to correct it. And if you marry a guy, you're the kind of woman that told yourself that, you tell yourself that you're not good with kids. And so you are likely only going to be able to deal with kids that are of your own. They're born from your womb, so you're responsible for them. So you don't want a guy that has kids. And you know that that's a thing with you. You've never been the woman to run an orphanage. You've always had qualms with babies. You like, whenever it is that you're holding one at the family function, you're holding the baby like that, at a distance. You can't even kiss the babies. You think they smell like mchogos or 24 hours a day. You don't like the fact that every so often they roll on the floor in malls and they throw a fit. And you feel as if though you would never know what to do with yourself, and you don't know how mothers take it. You don't know how these women do it, who have these kids that are literally screaming in the mall on the floor, just spinning. Yeah, and they don't want to leave because mama don't want to buy them a toy. And you look at such things on some, I'm glad I'm not a mother. So you tell yourself that because you know with kids, you know that you're not that girl. You know you don't have the patience. You know it. You know, therefore, that the only child that you likely would be given supernatural power to be patient with is if at all this baby came out of your own womb. If at all this child is your own. It is your flesh and your blood, so you gotta deal with it. You gotta deal with the screaming on the floor. You gotta deal with the poop. You gotta deal with the whatnot, only because it's your own baby. There are women like that in the world. I'm not one. I will admit, I love children. I'm good with kids. But irrespective of that, I still don't want a guy with children, and I'm gonna highlight to you why in a minute. 1 second. Okay, we're back. I was done. I was doing some editing thing. Yeah, anyway, but let me talk about a woman that does not like children. She doesn't like kids, but she would likely be an okay mother herself if she gave birth to her own babies. But she's not about to go and adopt anybody's child, and she's also therefore definitely not about to go and take care of anybody's kid. However, women who know themselves, uyazazi girl, you know yourself, they know themselves, they know how they are, will unfortunately, however, meet a guy that they are crashing, spazzing on. He is like the creme de la creme of what she imagines is the most gorgeous man around, and everything about him makes sense. He's just so well put together, so well spoken. He smells great. Alright, oh great. And then he rocks up, talks to them. She then gets all these electricity strikes down her spine. And as they're busy chatting, he then talks about how it is that he's got 2 kids. And she sits there on some, oh, okay, that's good. So what are their names? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you even asking what his kids' names are? It's basically like on the spot, she's made a decision that, aish, son, but like, but he's fly. And she just runs with it. That's the kind of person that will end up married to a man that has these 2 kids with maybe even with 1 baby mama. It doesn't matter. He might not have been all over the show. You know what I'm saying? He might have had these kids with a woman that he never married, or even an ex-wife. So this dude telling himself that he's divorced, it sends a little bit of an ish-san in her spine. But she's like, oh, how long? But to her, it's like, oh, but at least he's not with her, so he's available. So first it's the divorce, and then secondly it's the 2 kids. And then she's like, hey, what are their names? How old are they? Instead of running the other direction, because uyazazi, you can't stand to watch children in the mall. They irritate you. They're all over the show. They're always running around. They're always getting muddied and dirty. You find nothing cute about them. How about Talukhang? You don't understand Gresham, where they came from, because you feel like you've always been an adult. That's how much you don't like kids. And then this guy rocks up and says that he's got 2. And on top of that, he's divorced. But because he's this yummy guy walking around all over the show, you're now accommodating him, you're embracing him, you're taking it in your stride, and you are prepared to even go on a date where his kids are going to be present. Because he takes you that seriously, he likes you that much. He now wants to bring you around these kids. You let it get to that point, and then you are awkward with these kids, blah blah, etc. When you're that girl, during equilibrium or homeostasis, during that chill season, another guy, by the way, let me just put this out there. I stand corrected as to last time I checked. Trevor Noah, he's my age. He's never been married. He doesn't have children. Like, that's just my thing. Trevor Noah might not be saved yet, but he is yet another example of the fact that it is possible to find men who don't have those attachments later on in life. It's absolutely possible. Women, what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, moving on. Like, I just had a thought about Trevor Noah rocking up at the top of my mind right now, just to bring you real life examples of guys that are still that still have no rings on their fingers and also still don't have anybody that they're paying papgeld for, that are advanced in their years. Okay, advanced might sound like a heavy word for 39, but really it is to a certain extent for somebody who has never been married. But let's go back to this analogy of this woman that doesn't like kids, that now finds herself on a first date, not a first date, but a couple of days down the line with a guy that she is really feeling, and now she's busy hanging out with Banabateng. She's now hanging out with the children, etc. Along the way in the marriage, along the way in the union that the two of y'all are, when you start to reach homeostasis, when you start to reach equilibrium, where you're no longer spazzing over this guy, but he's a regular human being that eats, drinks, defecates, and farts. And even so, and he's got a bad case of halitosis in the morning. He's a regular human being now. You've reached homeostasis. The I love yous are love you at the end of a conversation is no longer a treat that you're waiting for. Now that you're there, that's when all of a sudden these kids are gonna drive you up the wall, doing things that kids typically do. And now the thing about kids is that I know I was that kid. My mother and my dad divorced when I was just 5 years old, and I always preferred my dad over every guy, even though he was a deadbeat dad. I only developed an attitude against my dad when I was already in my 20s, but before then I thought he was a star, even though he was, like I said, a deadbeat dad. So every man that came into my mom's life was just, goodness, whatever, who is this? You're not my dad. I gave all my mom's boyfriends, and by all I mean without exception, all of them, so much attitude. I was so disrespectful. I mean, goodness, from I told you, 5 years old. That's when my mom and my dad divorced. So every guy she's been with ever since the age of 6, 7, 8. My younger sister's dad, even once upon a time went and asked my mom, what's wrong? Karabo doesn't like me. And when my mom came back to tell me, I was so hurt. I was so sad. I was guilty because I had passed him so much shade. I had given him so much attitude. I had responded to him with, just disrespectful. I was very disrespectful to my mom's boyfriends. I did not like them. I hated them for no other reason than the fact that they were not my dad. So that's the issue with kids. And one of the guys that my mom dated was so generous and he was so sweet that he used to buy us stuff and spoil us. And when he would spoil us, on the day that he would spoil us with gifts, I would be nice. But the next day, it was just the guy that's with my mom. I don't understand what's going on with him. I would give him attitude the next day. I never, no one ever was cool. No one, no guy, ever. Azang balibona. So it did not matter. That's the reason why I don't want a guy that has children. I remember myself. It did not matter to me if at all this person really tried. If they were sweet, if they were kind, if they were buying me chocolates and sweets and all different kinds of cute gifts, if they were buying me clothes, I didn't care. Because you're still not my dad. Even though my dad was not providing. So some of these men were provided more for me than my own father, my own biological dad. But still, at the end of the day, I used to pray when I was a child every day for my parents to get back together. I realize now that that was the worst prayer that I could have ever prayed because my dad was a jerk, quite a prolific one that would have just worsened my mom. My mom is frankly the menace that she is to a certain extent because my dad, and my dad was also a drunk. So really, if he did come back into our lives, he would have just messed up with the equilibrium, the peace. He would have messed up with the peace in my mom's house. There would have been too many wars. There would have been brawls. I would have been living in a very unstable household as a teenager. So it's a good thing they never got back together because my dad was a livid drunk. He was a livid drunk. But despite him being a livid drunk, I still wanted him back together with my mom. Thank God that never got fulfilled. Thank God that never happened. My mom married badly. That's why y'all need to do it right the first time. Because if at all you marry badly, the only option that is legal in the sight of God then becomes a man like my dad. Imagine if my mom wanted to honor God in romance she would have been forced to basically just keep on letting that deadbeat come back in like a yo-yo, ndefela, in and out, on and off, on and off. Sometimes disappear. Yeah, she would have had to beg as a lot of nonsense, but that would only have been because she would have subjugated herself to the tyranny of marrying the wrong guy. That's why you just gotta get it right the first time, okay? So Tyrese, like proper, this is what's going on with you. Celibacy for the rest of your days. Not that you would listen to me. Or take that woman back. She seems to be contrite. Yeah, but there is no, like, just bending the rules a little. The law is dark and clear in the sight of God. Anyway, so since I was as disrespectful as I was, it did not matter if these men were sweet or kind or loving or generous or fatherly or caring. It did not matter if they had my back. It did not matter if they were even trying to ask me, how am I doing? How's school? What can I do for you? One guy was so for my mom and her children that he organized for my older sister to get a scholarship to go and study overseas. That's how she ended up in Italy. He was more of a dad to us than my actual father ever was, but I still didn't like him. Maybe my older sister was a lot more mature than me in dealing with these guys, but that's just also another thing. You never really know what kind of kid you're dealing with. Not every kid will pass you shade. Not every kid will give you grief. Not every kid will be selfish that their mother should never find love. Not every child will treat the boyfriend or the romantic prospect or the stepdad like trash or the stepmom like trash. Not every kid will do that, but you never know which kid you're dealing with. That's the thing. You never know if you're dealing with my sister, who was a lot more mature and better than my mom's boyfriends. I was the snooty brat that could not be rehabilitated into liking a guy, no matter what he did. Whereas my older sister was a lot more respectful. Between my older sister and I, y'all don't know what you're dealing with. Y'all don't know what you're dealing with. And you will only find out once you're in to that situation and you're out, you're busy being really in love with a guy. And sometimes you might even find, my older sister and me in one woman's life or in one man's life. In other words, just like with my mom, like her men had to deal with the snooty brat that I was, but my sister was a queen. My sister was just a joy for them, but I was unmanageable. I was not barging. That's why I don't want a man that has children, because I don't want to have to deal with that dynamic. I don't want to deal with a child that when my mom asked me, my little sister's dad asked her if I don't like him because I give him a lot of issues, grief. I was hurt, right? I was guilty for having done that to him. But when my mom asked me, I was like, no, that's rubbish. It's not true. And he's okay. I mean, why would you say that? I don't know what you're talking about. He's not seeing as you ought. 1 minute. I basically lied to my mom and said that, no, he's just being paranoid. What a trickster. What a trickster. I lied to my mom and said that my younger sister's dad was being paranoid about me not liking him. I was probably just having a bad day, but I didn't like him. And I didn't stop giving him attitude. I was absolutely beside myself with irritation. It only took me growing up to be a lot more respectful to him. I became an adult. I, was a whole grown working woman, and I was greeting him properly. I was respectful. He eventually passed away, but I was respectful as an adult. I snapped out of it as an adult. But during my teenage years, I was very, very mean. But they didn't stay together, though, all the way into my adulthood. After my little sister was born, typical black men, they broke up, right? But he was there, he was present, and so there was less of him to see. But when I got older, I stopped giving him attitude and passing him shade. I was now kind, I was sweet, I was smiling when he was around. I'd ask how he's doing, how's his business, okay, bye, see you next time, type thing. Because I'd grown up, I was a mature woman. But are you seriously gonna wait for kids to turn 21? Are you gonna wait for them to start working their first jobs in corporate and realize, oh snap, I was really mean to my stepmom? Oh goodness, why in the world was I like that to my stepdad? Are you gonna wait for them to get to the age of 20 and like a rabo, wake up and see that you don't treat people like that? I ain't trying to deal with that. 20 years old is like igoko. It's an old age when the kid in question is only still 6 years old. You still gotta wait until they turn 20 and realize that, oh man, I was so mean to my stepmom. I'm not trying to have that grief. I'm not trying to have that beef. I am not trying to have that problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if then you accommodate something that you initially knew that you could not take it in your stride, it was a deal breaker for you. It's not, children are not a deal breaker for everybody, by the way, and that's okay. In the scriptures, if you want to go and take somebody's children and raise them as your own, you do good. Actually, kids need love. Kids need a double parent household where mom is there and dad is there. So if you're prepared to go and act stepmom, by all means, but you cannot marry and remarry. So if you're going to be stepmom, you're going to have to be stepmom to a child where the man in question did not marry the baby mama. But you cannot, if the baby mama is still alive and was the ex-wife, that does not, you can't. It just doesn't work that way. So if you want to take him with all his kids, by all means do you get to do that insofar as he's never been married before. But if it's your particular standards not to have a guy with children, it's gonna burden you later on. One, you could be dealing with children that are disrespectful to you. And however, when you raise it with your man, on some babe, your kid gives me attitude. She talks to me like I'm nothing. She's disrespectful. The dad will go and talk to his daughter or his son. And just like me, the son or the daughter will say, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. Dad, no, I don't have issues with karabo. Right? You will also have issues with the fact that this child is calling you Karabo or Sarah and not so much Os Sarah, Os Karabo. What are you doing? Like, yeah. But to them, you're Karabo, because I mean, Dad, that's what you call her. So why should I call her Osi? Why should I call her Mam Sarah, Mam Karabo? What's going on? So now I don't want no child that is mine calling me by my first name. I certainly don't want that. And that is always a risk in an ecosystem where it is that a child is not biologically yours. I am either mom or auntie Karabo to children. Like, I cannot stand kids calling me by my first name. I don't like it. I just don't like it. It has a ring of disrespect to it. Like, yeah, it's a black thing, maybe, or it's ubiquitous across cultures, but this whole thing of kids calling you Refilwe, Lesejo, ke os Refilwe, os Karabo, os Mpho, os Lesejo, or Ma Karabo, or Ma, or Osi, or Auntie, but please, don't call me by my first name. Because only my peers call me by my first name, and there is always a risk that this kid is going to insist on calling me Karabo. So when then his son or his daughter is like, no, I don't know what Karabo's talking about. Whoa, what am I, like your age? Like, it's like he's talking about a kid, next door neighbor's kid. Young Johnny from next door, and I don't know what Johnny's talking about, but no, he's talking about you. Like, I can't. Like, I literally cannot deal. You're facing a risk of a child calling you by your first name first and foremost, which I can't take in my stride. And also the fact that this kid might lie. On some, I don't know what God was talking about. I'm cool. Maybe I was a little bit busy that day. I think I was doing my homework. So when she spoke to me, I didn't look her in the eye because I was concentrating on a math equation. And then the dad comes back to you and he's like, babe, according to Kagiso, like, no such thing is like going on. I'm really concentrating on math homework. That's why Nali like that. She says that she was focusing on her math homework and that's why she didn't look at you when you spoke to her. And I'm like, oh, okay. Except deep down inside, you know that Lesego is afraid. Like, wait a second, she's at war with you. She's growling. Deep down inside, she's snarling. There's like a little schmuck on the side. When I is smiling and I say evil coming from this child. And you cannot then raise it again with the dad because then you might look like you're victimizing their daughter or their son. That's why I don't want a guy with kids. I don't want to deal with those issues. I also don't want to tiptoe around a child. I cannot stand disrespectful children. I have a thing about that. I'm a disciplinarian. Right now, I'm living in a household where my little sister grew up disrespecting the living daylights out of me because of my mom. And it has caused us to have no relationship. I cannot stand disrespectful kids. And I also want to be able to discipline children when they go out of line, right? I want to be able to talk sense into their heads. I want to be able to sit them down and discuss the issue at hand. And if at all I cannot do this with a child, I feel frustrated. I remember before my little sister disrespected me, I would sit her down and talk to her. And one day her dad came to me on some that means you're busy talking with my child, yelling at my child. What are you saying with my child? When, if anything, all I was saying was talking to his child on some, you can't do this and that. This is what you do when you get home. You need to wash the dishes. I was talking to my baby sister, and that was just a sister, a sibling. And her, because that sibling was my half sibling, and the dad in question was the other half. In other words, that was the person that was not biological to me. He yelled at me he had a discussion with me about how it is that I must not yell at his child. And he said, Oscar Chika Mwanaka. That's how he said it. He didn't say Oswahao. He said, Oscar Chika Mwanaka. And then I looked at him on some, I couldn't disrespect him. By then I was already in my 20s. I was just like, okay, I gotta go now. Bye, type thing. But I then went to my mom and I was like, your ex-boyfriend is out there giving me grief for disciplining a child that lives in this household. And now I get to buy at the beck and call of one. So the ex-boyfriend now. Go and talk to your ex-boyfriend. Because if I need to tell that little girl to like sweep the floor, mo kitchening, apumule ditamati tsa di sileng mole. I don't want her dad coming to me and telling me nonsense. And my mom did indeed speak to him because there was a time when I was not disrespected in this environment. But that was my baby sister. Now imagine if it is your stepkid. Your stepkid. Yeah, like proper. And you cannot like keep on raising issues with them, because then it might appear as if though you're victimizing them until it eventually gets to a point where the dad is like, and the dad / your lover, your boyfriend, your husband, then is like, why do you keep like just raising issues with my kid? She feels, what's the word that I'm looking for? Not bombarded, but ambushed. A child, yeah, a dad rocking up on some, goodness gracious, my daughter feels ambushed by you. She feels ambushed by you because, of course, if a child has no respect for you and she does not like your presence, she will magnify an issue beyond what it truly is. If at all a kid does not like being spoken to or not yelled at, but disciplined. My little sister didn't like being disciplined. And so she went and told her dad that like muchika. Whoa, like kitchen counter. What are you doing? Like stop. Yeah, that is a person that needed to be told to wipe the kitchen counter. But to her, she magnifies it in the eyes of the dad until the dad comes and talks to me, telling me that I need to stop disciplining his child because it's for him to do. Of which does not even live with us, and so he does not have to deal with picking up the crumbs of tomatoes and bread and the cakey, the scone like crumbs on the floor, and ants therefore gathering around that. He doesn't have to deal with that, because frankly, if at all he came into his own house and that was a thing in his own kitchen, he would have gone and grabbed a kaditsebe, pulling her with an ear out of her bedroom on some boni kitchen. Did you see what is going on in the kitchen? Man. That's what he would have done. But like, I can't do it because now this kid has used a hyperbole. He has exaggerated how it is that I spoke to her, the tone, and what it is that I petitioned for her to do. So she will feel ambushed and bombarded, and upon feeling ambushed and bombarded, will not only tell her dad, who is your lover or your boyfriend or your fiance or your husband, but she will also go and tell her mom, who is your rival, your arch nemesis, on some mama, a boyfriend, girlfriend ya papa, I suga, or musad wa papa, I get bona no ke mwaka go etsa lang udlang chica, on some mommy, daddy's boyfriend or wife, whatever's going on there, she's always yelling at me, she's always giving me grief, and now you're gonna look like the evil stepmom. That's why evil stepmoms are even a thing. I feel as if though sometimes part of the portion of the whole evil stepmom phenomenon in the earth is due to the fact that the kids are unyielding, they're unmoving. When a woman or a man, especially a woman, is not truly the biological mother of a child, these kids will give them a hard time and make it look as if though they were a stepmom from hell, even though she was decent, she was okay, she was not abusive, but this kid will make it look as if though she would not let her catch a break. Kids are inherently kind of ill-disciplined. The Bible says that in the heart of a child dwells a great deal of folly, but the rod of discipline drives it far away from him. So kids have a lot of folly in their hearts, meaning they manufacture lies like every living second, and only discipline drives it away from him or her. Well, however, when you are the stepmother, it becomes very hard to basically drive a folly out of a child with the rod of discipline, because she won't even think that you're in your right place to discipline them. Kids struggle to be disciplined by their step, unless of course it's a child that you collected, you basically adopted when it was still a baby, like when she was still only 2 years old, when she was still only 1 year old. Then you can indeed act and play mother as well as you want to, especially if the real mother is not in question, is not around. If the real mom passed away or is not there, is not available, and you're the only mom that child has ever known, then maybe it might work. But when the child has their own mom, alive, thriving, likely also living with that mom, but every so often visiting you, you're going to struggle to discipline them, and they also are going to have a hard time liking you. They're going to always prefer their mom over you, even if their mom's character leaves a lot to be desired. And as a Christian woman, I am good with children. As a Christian woman, I am godly about children. I love them, but it would not matter in the life of a step kid that has it in for me. So that's why I don't want a man that has got a child or children. So this guy from America, I was settling in the worst way, knowing all of these things. These are my reasons. They're not just merely shallow, because frankly, I'm good with kids. I love them so much that I wanted to adopt them. I wanted to adopt a couple of them, because when they're adopted, they're mine. I don't have to deal with baby mama drama and also baby daddy drama, because if I'm adopting with my husband, and both of us are essentially step parents to this child. But when one of the people is the biological mom and one of them is the adoptive, or the one that is coming into the marriage, that's when the attitude sparks. But a child that has been taken from an orphanage, you're all they have. And so you get to discipline them as much as you want. You get to basically be a mom to them the way that you want. But it is different when only one one pair of this union, only one side of this pair is the biological or dad. It becomes really rough when that's the case. And people that have got that dynamic know that it's true. You know it's true. And kids are also influenced by the world around them, right? So they tend to have respect sometimes in society for the wealthy, for those who have money. So if you are like, you know how with Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade's kids embraced her because she was a celebrity, she was famous. To the kids, it was about the fact that, Gabrielle Union is my stepmom. But if Gabrielle Union was not Gabrielle Union, but just a regular Jane and a regular Joe, she might have struggled with respect from those kids. She might have struggled with respect from those kids, coupled with the fact that Gabrielle Union allowed that child to transition over to being a girl, even though he was a boy. Zaya Wade, or whatever. I don't know if Gabrielle Union would allow that same nonsense to happen with her daughter, her biological daughter. It was something that she was just accommodating, being a celebrity and being tolerant. But when you're a biological mom, such things really eat away at you. And Dwayne Wade's ex-wife, and so therefore biological mother of these children, she had qualms with the fact that the child was trying to transition. But nonetheless, Gabrielle Union is the one that got the word in, and the courts stood with Dwayne Wade because he's got more money, wada. It was all that stuff. So it really threw her in hot water to be a celebrity as Gabrielle Union. However, when you are standing from the vantage point of me, a Lay Jane, a no-brainer, you also stand to be disrespected just because you come from a place where nobody likes you. You've got this YouTube channel that's taboo, you're a Christian. Everybody thinks you're whack or weird. Nah, I'm not going to be disrespected by a child that does not look at me and see the world in my eyes. Because I'm its mom. It's real mom. It's biological. Kids can be disrespectful, guys. They snap out of stuff later in life. But first, before they snap out of it, they hurt parents. They hurt teachers. They hurt people, and if at all you are the lover of this kid's dad, if you are the fiance or the wife of this kid's dad, they're going to inevitably hurt you. And I don't want to have to deal with more pain in my life than I can take in my stride. So while I might indeed love children, I still do not want to stepmother them where daddy's the biological and I am just somebody taking them on board because of the fact that I'm in love with a man. I know how they can be because I remember how I was. You're going to struggle to discipline them, and they might even give you attitude, coupled with the fact that I don't want to deal with another. I have problems with jealousy. Okay, what in the world is going on here? I know what's going on. I've got a speech lag. I need to stop talking because, I'm not going to have space much longer on this phone. So I need to finish this message. What is this woman? I don't want to have to deal with the other woman. I don't want to deal with the baby mama. A man's ex-girlfriend should remain in the past in all manner and intents and purposes. She should just stay in the past. I don't want a woman in my man's life that used to be with my man. I don't want her. And kids, make sure that can never be a fulfilled dream. I will inevitably have to deal with EX. I will inevitably have to compare my aging with his ex's aging. I will inevitably compare my face as to whether or not it's as pretty as the ex is. I will inevitably also deal with the attitude of the ex. I will inevitably have to exchange notes with the ex. I will inevitably have to make calls, call a woman I don't even like proper. I will never ever have feelings of endearment towards a woman that's been with my man. It's that basic. It'll never happen. And as a Christian woman, I stand to be unloving on that day, and so therefore I don't want a baby mama in the picture. And if a man has a wife, an ex-wife, never mind an ex-wife, but an ex-baby mama, not an ex, the baby mama is still current. If a man has a baby mama, I will have to interact with this woman whether or not I like it. I don't like exes. I do not like them. I had such a big problem with my ex's ex. that I like proper, that trauma. I don't like exes. Let's just put that out there and leave it at the door. I don't like exes. They must stay in the past. They must be only seen at malls when we mistakenly bump into them because they just happen to be in the same geographical location. But I don't want meetings organized with them deliberately, like literally planned to meet up with somebody that was once upon a time sleeping with my man. I don't want to see it. And kids make sure that can never be fulfilled. So since I've got issues with jealousy and insecurities, let's just not leave an ex in my life. Let's not do that. That's what's good. There was a time when my ex-boyfriend wanted me back after making a baby with the woman that was a side piece in our relationship, and he had a baby with her. I couldn't stand that woman when he had no child with her, and now I gotta deal with the fact that every so often I have to just talk with her because the daughter is in my house. Whoa, I'm sorry. No, there are so many issues that I frankly cannot deal with, and I took that to God. Do you see that these are valid reasons? I don't want to hurt a child's heart. If as a woman who does not like children, you're gonna struggle with these issues. If at all I, who love children, can anticipate struggling with these issues, how much worse if at all you don't like kids but you like the man, are you gonna struggle with them? And as men will give you grief when you are not sufficiently loving of their children. And if at all you're a woman that can't stand kids, but you imagine you can take care of your own children, then give him babies, but don't take care of his. Like, it's that basic. It's a packaged deal, meaning that if you are a woman that does not like children, don't get with a man that has them. Don't get with a man that has them. You can have your own children with him, and God will give you grace to love your children. Because it's a maternal thing, it happens automatically. You bond at birth, but you never bonded with that other woman's child, coupled with the fact that you don't like that other woman. So spare yourself all that tumult, just for the sake of being in love, just for the sake of having somebody to wake up next to in the morning, just for the sake of putting a ring on your finger. You will fraza yourself with the children of somebody else. And running the perspective of kids who feel as if though you were an evil stepmom, sometimes it is maintained well into old age. Even though you were not all that menacing, you will always be the evil stepmom that they don't like. I don't like going over to see dad because, his wife. Yes, like a dog. No. I like being liked. And I also like being liked by kids. Kids love me. Yeah, they do. My goodness. Whenever they're around, I'm like honey and they're bees. They're all over the show. But that's only because it's Auntie Karabo, OC Karabo, but never stepmom. Never stepmom. Adore me because I am the loving aunt that is very doting. Let it stay there. I don't want these kids to now have qualms with the fact that I sleep with their dad when it's supposed to be their mom in that position. That's going to create animosity. Is that basic? So that's why and the basadi that are settling for this, even though they don't like kids in a way that I do. If at all I have these qualms, understand yours are going to be loftier. And when you reach that equilibrium stage in your relationships, homeostasis, when you reach that homeostatic state in your marriages, that's when all of a sudden all the issues with kids are gonna arise, and you're gonna have a lot of arguments with your husband about his disrespectful teenage girl that won't even listen to you talk, that every single time you want to raise an issue, he accuses you of victimizing the child. It will cause rifts in your relationship, and it will also ultimately cause you to divorce. And Gabrielle Union, who claimed to be besotted and beside herself with love for Dwayne Wade's children, to a point of calling them her own. Now that they are separated, she's running these streets, taking all different kinds of photos, being very happy a mom over just her daughter. Just her daughter. She's sporting just the daughter, but not the sons of Dwayne Wade. There is no girl there. Let's just put that out there. She is sporting the daughter that she had with him, the biological child out of, the surrogate's womb, but that is of her biological material. She's sporting her daughter, but not the sons. If at all, Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union had gotten divorced, all those children were born to Gabrielle Union. There would be a whole custody battle, and Gabrielle Union would be sported taking photos with her sons and daughter. Children of which she, when she was married to him, was calling them sons and daughter. But now that they are separated, or separating, whatever's going on there, it's just daughter. So if at all you can quickly just dump children because they were not born of your womb, even though for years they called you mom, that's not responsible towards the children. It's not responsible. So given that relationships between human beings, grown adults, don't always stick together, they don't always last. You should not be putting children through the trauma of being ripped away from a stepmom they adored, or being ripped away from a stepdad they adored. Now that you are divorced from their dad, you will never see them again, or at least you won't make an effort to be there. You're not going to make an effort to go to their recitals. You're not going to make an effort to be there at their matric dance. You're not going to make an effort to be there when they graduate from high school. You're not going to be there and make an effort to be there for them at university when they are doing freshman's year, looking what is orientation week, where parents are there. You're not going to be there, even though they long for you to be there. Kids can latch on very dearly, a bond with adults in a way that, is traumatizing if at all that adult is ripped out of their lives. So if this step kid loved you and didn't give you grief, like the kinds that I have mentioned right now, when you and the dad divorce and all of a sudden they're not my kids, and you're not there at milestone events in their lives, these kids are the ones that are going to suffer post-traumatic stress. They're going to feel rejected. They're going to feel unwanted. Like, oh, so you married dad and then you divorce and you ditch me afterwards. I'm no longer anything to you. And that's exactly what Gabrielle Union is not doing. Dwayne Wade's kids loved her, but now it's just her and her baby girl. It's just her and her baby girl. And so just for the sake even of the children, it's not okay to, if at all you don't like kids, or if at all you don't want a guy that has children, to insist on marrying him because you're gonna ditch the kids. The only kind of woman that would make sense to be with a man that has kids and vice versa is one that would be prepared to stick with these kids even after divorce happens, because they saw you as mom and for years they called you mom. And even though you and dad are not together, just like a biological mother, you're still around. You're still around. Not a lot of people in this world do that. Not a lot of people are mature enough to stick around with kids even when things go sour between you and the lover boy. And I don't want anything of that nature. Not that I would anticipate ever getting a divorce from my husband, because people like me stay married. That's what's good. But just in case, no such thing happens as marital unfaithfulness. Even Christians sin. I don't want to find myself in a position to be mourned by kids that will never see me again purely because they're not my biological babies. It's unfair. It's unfair. Yeah, so I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. There are so many complexities. So when I say wait on the Lord for what you asked for and stick to your guns, because whatever it is that you hold fast to in your 20s, in your early days when you still have a lot going for yourself, you tend to still want that as a fulfilled ideal. It's idyllic. Do you understand? However, you will have settled because of the fact that you got older. So given that it was the ideal in your mind, it will always be burning, etching in like a tattoo on your brain, meaning that it is going to afflict you later on. If you didn't like kids, you're not going to suddenly like his. Unless they're your own biological kids, those are the only ones you're going to like. If you did not like, if you did not want a guy that had kids, and even though you're good with kids, you might be so good with them that they're going to love you, but you're going to ditch them if you get divorced from the guy. The guy might give you grief with disciplining those children, and so you're going to feel like your hands are tied when certain things are being raised. This child might give you low-key attitude in a way that the dad does not see, and so therefore you're going to look like you're a crazy woman, basically stepmom bashing children that don't have it coming. That's what's good. Yeah, so if you want a clean slate, you get to pray for it, because there are so many issues, and when these issues arise, they cause bitterness. And what does bitterness do in a heart? It can cause a man's heart to grow cold towards God. It can cause a woman's heart to grow cold towards God. And it is therefore imperative to make sure that you work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Don't put yourself in a position to dishonor God later on. Don't put yourself in a position to dishonor your status as a wife, your status as a mother, even a stepmother. If you don't want to be a stepmother, you get to ask God that you want a guy that does not have any children, because you know how you is. You know how you is, girl. You know how you are. You know how you are. And God also knows how you are. So whatever it is that you need to do in order to make sure you don't sin against God, do it. And for me personally, given that I know how I am scared of some reverse version of some upside down crazy karma, where I'm going to be dealing with a kid that's going to be like me when I was a kid. Can't stand any woman, man at all. That's not my biological dad. I don't want some kid looking at me on some, yo, this woman, she's overbearing. I don't want to be gossiped in little primary schools and high schools by some kid who can't stand her dad's wife. Like, I just don't want that. I have mad respect for admiration by the youth, guys. I love them, and I love that they admire me. I don't want to be Cruella de Vil. I don't want to be Mrs. Trenchbull. I don't want to be an evil stepmom. I don't want to be unliked. I just like admiration from kids. I do. I am so besotted with them that I prefer them admiring them instead of hating me. And when I become their stepmom, it might just not work out. It might not work out that way, because they might just have like a little bit of a cold-heartedness towards me. Let me keep my admirers exactly where they're at, as admirers and not haters, who are also being spoken rubbish into the ears of by bitter not stepmoms, but moms, their own moms, with whom I'm going to be dealing with baby mama drama, might just gossip me so badly that there's nothing that I can do to convince this kid to do a better thing. So this stuff eventually catches up. That's what I'm getting at. People ultimately find themselves in a compromised position where this is concerned. There is sorrow to be endured when you settle. That's what I'm getting at. And this sorrow tends to rear its ugly head at equilibrium in a relationship. And once you reach that equilibrium, you will inevitably divorce if you have settled for deal breakers. And that's why I'm not settling anymore. I was 5 seconds away from settling, but now I know where I stand and I won't compromise. Let me also just put this out there. I had a dream where I saw bulbous heads, aliens in some kind of a craft that were captured. Some of them were dead, others were just imprisoned. And the only time in the history of the human race where that's gonna be like a whole thing is after we've left, because there's going to be an alien deception. So I might just be having this conversation in vain, where I'm trying to give women advice because we're going home in the rapture. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot happening all over the show. Women that have made the compromises that I am currently trying to stay my hand from are getting their day in court. Their comeuppance is here. The comeuppance of Gabrielle Union is here. The comeuppance of Angelina Jolie already happened. The comeuppance of Jada Pinkett is here. The comeuppance of Alicia Keys might come. And so when you see basically bad girls or wicked people get dealt with, and in increasing measure more and more of them falling apart because of the bad ungodly decisions they made, you ought as a Christian anticipate that this can only mean deliverance for Christians is nigh. That those of us that waited for years for husbands and didn't settle are about to get our men. That Cara was about to get married and have those children even though she had to wait until she was in her 40s. That those of us who the world laughed at when we were waiting on God for lofty things we asked of him are now being given those things. And so the world who looked at us as arrogant to think that we're still going to get something so fresh as a man that's never been married, never had children, and also just a really stellar, upstanding guy at 40 are naive, they're going to be laughed at. They're going to be the joke of the day. They're going to be basically looked at as you spoke too soon. They're going to end up like Penina, who mocked Hannah for what I would imagine years because she would not conceive. And then next thing she was made mum because the woman who was barren has borne 7. But the woman who had many children now, Utulile, she's nowhere to be found. When you start to see a whole bunch of women get handled for having been as a woman that has been the one waiting on God, you ought rather look around and be like, maybe, just maybe, this is my redemption. Maybe I'm about to get my husband. Maybe I'm finally going to get married. Maybe I'm finally going to have those children and I'm going to pop them miraculously like Sarah in my 40s, have 5 whole babies in my 40s with gynaes, OBGYNs and the like. Just looking at this marvel of a woman that should be having like a hard time conceiving, carrying a geriatric pregnancy, popping babies like she's 19 years old. Yeah, maybe that's what's about to come for me. Because, I mean, look at what's going on with all these other women that decided to steal other people's husbands in the world. It's falling apart. Their structures are obviously not holding water. They are fulfilling statistics. And then I get a dream about bulbous heads captured on a craft. Little green men, essentially, except in my dream they were grey men. And when we're living in a world where that's like a whole thing, guys, then I guess my wisdom will only bless you post-mortem. In the sense that I will already have been raptured, and you will have wished you listened to me. And my, my answered prayer will only be in the millennial reign. But I will have been so violently passed up, even in terms of counsel, that women who are now suffering the consequences of their actions, like Gabrielle Union, are having to sit around listening to content like mine and seeing why it is that they fell short of the glory of God, that they fell short as a woman truly, and yet they were respected. That which was evil was called good, and that which was good was called evil. It is speculated that Dwayne Wade's ex-wife is Christian. If at all she gets raptured, and Gabrielle Union is still here, she's going to realize what a fool she was to do what she did to her. Everybody that is wrong is being praised, and everybody that is right is being disregarded and marginalized. I saw not little green men, but big gray guys with bulbous heads, some of which were dead, others of which were captured, and likely awaiting experimentation. What Earth is going to be doing stuff like that? Except an Earth where there is an excuse and explanation for why so many people disappeared. We very potentially are going in the rapture when you all would have ignored this kind of advice, this kind of wisdom. So I don't know, guys, what I'm waiting for. I don't know what I'm panicking about. All I know, my wisdom has been wasted. It appears it's been wasted, but something is about to set the record straight, and I'm not sure between breakthrough and me getting my husband and future children and all that I have longed for and the rapture, which of those two is accurate. I keep saying that. I guess we're gonna have to just wait. Otherwise, I hope you've been edified by this message. Marriage and remarriage is a sin against God if your former spouse is still alive. Children are subjugated to the tyranny of irresponsible adults that are busy exchanging two bodily fluids. The earth is therefore manufacturing all of these derelicts all over the show that think that it's okay to do evil things, when in the sight of God, they are just that evil, but everybody else is embracing them. There are truths that are cast in stone in black and white, engraved in our hearts, that we are just ignoring. And I have just highlighted them. Tyrese needs to get back with his ex-wife, if at all he's going to be okay with God. But Tyrese stands to be with great remorse and also regret after the rapture has happened, upon, if at all he happens upon it, upon happening upon content like mine, realizing that his anger that is unyielding and his unforgiveness towards his ex-wife is evidencing that he did not pass the test that God set apart for him to endure. Because here it is that God brought back the woman that was his first wife, the wife of his youth, whom he was supposed to enjoy the breast of all the way up until old age. And when she came back like a prodigal daughter, he cast her out. Whereas God would never have cast her out. He would have said, "He who has no sin, let him cast the first stone." So Tyrese stands to severely regret his decisions upon the rapture, because he's still going to be here even though he's professing Christ. For men like him, for his sake, frankly, I pray that the Lord would take the church, because Tyrese looks like the kind of guy that would stay in his reprobate state until death, thinking he's going to heaven, and then finding himself plunging into hellfire. He needs a wake-up call just like the rapture. And as for men like Nick Jones, he needs to stop making commentary along the lines of Tyrese is obviously right, that woman was wrong, because that's what people in the world would say. And while Tyrese was right and that woman was wrong, ours is a prerogative to forgive, and ours is a prerogative for reconciliation. So he had no business as a Christian content creator, basically standing and supporting Tyrese in his retaliatory response to his ex-wife's regret. This world needs to get their perspective in a shape, guys. It's that basic. So to men who feel me stiff-necked and stymieing, and like Otoshwa Uliwan, men who think of me as too iffy, pinicky, and choosy. I'm not iffy, pinicky, and choosy. I just understand ramifications of actions, and I'm also godly, meaning that I'm not trying to dishonor God. And so, just because I don't want you and your babies doesn't mean you're worthless as a man. It means you've just gotten to a point in life where a woman like me does not make sense for you. You need to go and finish raising your babies, and you need to reconcile with your ex-wife. If you don't want to, you need to be celibate for the rest of your days. If you don't want to do that, I get baga, then take hellfire in your stride. But do not try and divorce your girl for karabo, because it is illegal in the sight of God, coupled with the fact that it's going to subjugate me to the tyranny, maybe likely disrespectful children, or children that I will ultimately ditch because they're not my own biological children, therefore causing me to sin against God by hurting those kids. There are so many things that could go wrong in that. Understand where I'm coming from. I've given you an explanation. If people still continue to insist on marrying me off to somebody's seconds, I get, but then again, the hearing ear and the seeing eye both are from the Lord. So it would make sense then if nobody listens to me, because I guess in the last days, people will fall away from the faith, taking heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. They will not love the truth, and having itching ears, they will gather for themselves a great number of teachers to teach them whatever they want to hear, turning aside to myths. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We are the 5 wise virgins. We are waiting on Christ, and if the rapture is how we get out of here without children and a husband, it's okay. If I get the children and the husband, it will be a man like Alan Parr. It'll be a man like George Clooney. It'll be a man like Trevor Noah. It'll be a man that has never been married, a man that has never had children, and a man that is old enough to be my husband. Not a child, not a Ben 10, not a guy that I'm going to be the sugar mama to, but a dude that is age appropriate and likely also has a gray beard. But guess what? He has not gone on right ahead to fertilize anybody else's eggs. He's waiting just to fertilize mine. They exist, they live. There are enough examples in both the secular and Christian space for you women out there to trust that they exist. So stop settling just because you're 35. Stop settling just because you're 40. Stop settling just because you're 45 or even 50. Of Sarah. Remember that. Signing out in Christ's name, Cran K. Bye.